The Supreme Court has cleared the way for federal immigration agents to resume so-called roving patrols in Los Angeles, sweeps that critics say amount to racial profiling. The brief order allows ICE and Border Patrol to restart operations that had been paused after a lawsuit from the ACLU. For more on what this ruling means, both legally and for immigrant communities, I want to bring in Professor Sophia Genovese this afternoon, a clinical teaching fellow and supervising attorney at Georgetown Law's Center for Applied Legal Studies. Thanks so much for joining us.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Professor Genovese, I want to start with this. This was an unsigned Supreme Court order. Can you break down for our viewers what exactly the court decided and, just as importantly, what it did not decide yet?
Absolutely. So this was yet another case on the Supreme Court's shadow docket, where the federal government asked the Supreme Court to stay a preliminary decision in a district court ruling. This ruling came out of the Central District of California. It was a preliminary injunction. It was a TRO in which the court ordered ICE to stop racial profiling in their immigration enforcement operations. This case is still ongoing, but the judge in California issued this preliminary relief to the parties. The federal government sought an appeal all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, through the shadow docket, has stayed the enforcement of that injunction while the case proceeds below.
Justice Brett Kavanaugh wrote in concurrence that factors like race or place of work could be relevant in determining immigration status. How unusual is that reasoning, and what does it mean in practice?
Well, first of all, Justice Kavanaugh's concurrence is not a binding decision. There was no majority opinion in this case, as is typical with shadow docket rulings. But the impact of this decision, coupled with Justice Kavanaugh's concurrence, is that it gives ICE essentially carte blanche authority to detain people based on their race, where they might be working, what language they speak, or if they speak with an accent, and what neighborhoods they might be around in. And this is deeply troubling because this applies effectively nationwide.
Right. It's no secret we've seen a heightened fear among people, especially during high-profile raids. What's the impact of these kinds of enforcement actions? What do they do to the relationship between immigrant communities and local law enforcement?
There's a lot of fear in the communities I serve all across the country. People are afraid to leave their homes. They're afraid to walk their kids to school. They're afraid to go to work. This is having a profound impact on communities all across the country. And to take it even a step further, like the two of the plaintiffs in the case below who were U.S. citizens who also happen to be Latino, now citizens are at risk of arbitrary arrest simply because of the color of their skin. This is a very concerning development in the case.
Real quickly, before I let you go, we have about 30 seconds here, Professor. What bigger pictures does this fit into the tension between federal authority on immigration and protections against discrimination? What message does this send out?
This sends the message that the administration thinks that citizenship and belonging in this country is simply for white people. This sends a clear message that people of color are not welcomed, they will not be included in civic life, and now they are at risk of arbitrary detention.
Professor Sophia Genovese, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining us and weighing in on this topic. Thanks so much.